Well, here we go. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking to our guests today. We got Keith Misner, who's the Senior Vice President, Head of Investment Sales at Berkadia, Mike Miner, Senior Vice President, Deputy Head of Investment Sales at Berkadia, and Dori Nolan, Senior Vice President, National Client Services. A lot of seniors, and I was always raised to never be the smartest person in the room. So I feel like that is perfect for today. I'm excited to talk to all three of you today. And I really want to talk about, Berkadia does a lot of things, investment sales and mortgage banking and servicing. But I really want to kick off by something that I love that just is on the very homepage of Berkadia.com. And that is the slogan, build for the now and the next. That is brilliant. And we are sitting here live on January 11th. We are living through COVID, hope to be past COVID relatively soon. I forgot my dog's in my room. I got to let my dog out. Hold on. And I want to know, what does build for the now and the next? And Keith, we'll start with you. What does that mean to you today? What does that mean to Berkadia? Keep talking. I got to let my dog.
Yeah. I hope you come back, right? Don't leave. Hello, everyone. Build for the now and the next. I mean, I think it's encompassing what it's important to not rest on your laurels. We're in the sales business, and we reset every year, January 1st, right? And so how can we align ourselves with last year was good, last year was a challenge, but guess what? This year's going to be a challenge too. It's just going to be a different challenge. And it's you have to be ready to pivot, ready to take advantage of opportunities, and ready to learn from your past experiences too. It's we're pretty proud of that and our culture that we work around to bring that to bear for ourselves, really, and our clients.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about resetting every January 1st, I love what you're talking about there, because I think this January 1st, which has only been 10 days ago, so much has happened in the world. But in a world where now, people are kind of, this isn't probably the first pandemic, unfortunately, that many of us will go through. And so everybody kind of reset back in March and then really had to reset right now in January 1st. So Mike, as you kind of look into your world from an investment perspective, what does reset not only mean to you, but to all of the team that you oversee that is kind of resetting their business plan, their pipeline, their client contacts, their mindsets, all of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think there's ever been more anticipation for a reset than the 1st of January 2021.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, how much enthusiasm there was, but I think it looks different this year than other years because there's still uncertainty. And usually January 1, you are planning out a year of certainty. And we learned last year that those plans get blown up very quickly. And so I think planning for this year, that reset included being adaptable, being able to take whatever the economy, your job, your life throws at you, because what happens today will look different than what's happening in March and what's happening in June. And so what we communicate to our team members is, how are you going to be adaptable? How are you going to plan for the unplannable? And when it comes, you change your team. You change how you meet. You go from in-person meetings with clients to having vlogs or having, virtual Zoom conversations, working virtually. And so I think that's how we've tried to really communicate it to our team members, just that planning for uncertainty.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so well said. And Dori, I want to move over to you, because one of your responsibilities at Berkadia is leading really on a national initiative to grow business relationships. And today, growing business relationships to make emotional connections, to connect with people on a consistent basis is just, it's different today than it was 9-10 months ago. And so how are you not only doing that yourself, leading others to do it, but also kind of keeping them inspired to continue to do it? Because I think it's hard. I see in a lot of industries, people have Zoom fatigue, and they're talking about. So how do you kind of keep it going?
Sure. No, great question, John. So first and foremost, I think you have to listen, right? Like listening is such an important muscle that we all need to probably work on and understand and bring that to the forefront. But yeah, listening to our clients is critically important. And we moved to a virtual environment and started working remotely back in March. So it's finding new ways to stay connected to our clients. So we've been rolling out a bunch of different ways to do that. We've been hosting some town halls where we sit down with the client and understand their needs, objectives, and challenges, and really set that the table to address their needs going forward. So if that might be investment strategies or access to real estate opportunities, whatever it may be. We also have been doing roundtables where we bring different clients from different firms together just to collaborate and talk through challenges that they may be experiencing with their own portfolios, as well as different strategies that they may be hearing about that they may want to obtain additional information on to potentially pursue going forward. Yeah. So I think we're learning, we're iterating every week, every day. We're iterating to find new ways to stay connected. You're right. Everyone has a little bit of Zoom fatigue. We're also doing client events virtually. So we did a fun event back in the summer where we did it was a market update ultimately, and we were able to communicate the Berkadia message. But we had Dimitri from Gourmet Mixes come and do a Bloody Mary presentation virtually, where we sent clients in advance a box of Bloody Mary mix and all the fixings, and we did a 20-minute presentation before we kicked into our market presentation. So just trying to change it up, and to stay relevant too, right? To make folks want to feel included and inspired to listen to our message. Yeah,
I love that. I love that. Get people a drink or two before you present. I love that is. I always found that if you want people to come to a meeting, you bring in food, and so if you want to get rid of Zoom fatigue, I guess give them a drink. I think I love it. I love it. I want to talk about something that a lot of you have mentioned, which is really just the word listening. And I want to talk about leadership in the world of COVID. It's been 9, almost 10 months since COVID has been around, and I would say these last 10 months have for many felt like really 10 years. I think, when you look at pre-COVID studies, I just want to throw this out there real quickly. When you look at pre-COVID studies, there were studies that said that by the year 2030, 85% of the jobs that will exist do not exist today. And that by the year 2027, 50% of the workforce will be freelancers. And I think COVID really accelerated things from an innovative standpoint, minimum 5 years. And so as leaders, you have all had to lead people through stress, turmoil, pipeline change, the dynamics of distractions, and working while your children, like mine, are in bed right now. They're a freshman and senior. I went upstairs to give them a kiss. They're in class in bed. My son's playing Xbox because he has no class right now. And my daughter's, and they're on their Zooms. And so you've had to lead, I think, during a very difficult time of the world, and you can't read it in a book and you can't take a seminar on it because we were living it in real time. So how did you lead through that, and how do you continue to lead through that?
I'll start. We call it Me to Learn. We have at Berkadia, we have the privilege of having, culture being the foundation of what we do and how we do it and why we do it, and most companies do. But we really drive it home through betterment exercises and connectivity exercises, and that we are writing that. And we call it Me to Learn. And there's a way you do it, and the biggest part I have on that is patience. I try to ask probing questions. And I let, whether it's my team members or my client or whoever I'm interrelating with, do the talking. And then I try to take notes, and I try to provide the feedback later afterwards to follow through what we talked about. And I think we always have to do that. Pre-COVID, we would fly to New York and go from client to client to client. And I've been doing this my whole career. And you'd have a certain energy level with my peers and my partners, and the market experts in the elevator on the way up. And then you'd have a little bit of nervous energy, and then you do your presentation, and then you'd be in the elevator on the back down, and wasn't that great? And then I'm like, but now we're constantly in the elevator down. We never got to be with people, but it was always about the follow-up. And it was always, what did we promise ourselves in the elevator on the way down that we were going to do as the follow-up? And you know what, did we ever really do that to the extent? I'm not sure we did to the right extent, but that's one thing I've been driving is follow through.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, that's something that does get put on the sidelines when we are running too fast, and it really is a muscle that I think everybody needs to build more, because you can never follow up enough, right? I mean, obviously we don't want to micromanage, but you can never follow up enough. And so that's music to my ears. I love it.
The other thing I would add, one of our core values at Berkadia is people matter. So when this all kind of went down, we started with people are being impacted, outside of work, outside of their professional day to day. And so we tried to really listen, as you said, to what they had going on, understand how they were impacted, and just realize we're all people in this trying to figure this out. And so I think from a leadership perspective, really being in tune with them, Keith said, going on those listening tours to hear what was going on and really connecting at that level and letting them know, hey, we see you as people, not as employees, not as independent contractors, but as people. We're all in this together. We're trying to figure it out. The other things I would hit on is just visibility. I think when there's so much uncertainty, and visibility took on a whole new meaning, right? It was a virtual visibility,
right?
So being visible as leaders, being present. And then when there was so much ambiguity or unknown or anxiety kind of floating around, it was laying out what we believed to be the direction we needed to, tackle different problems.
Yeah.
And I think having people hear that and see that gave them a little bit more confidence as time went on during this whole COVID era. So
I love it. And how about you, Dori?
Well, Mike stole, of course, a portion of what I was going to say, but that's okay. But going on to the people matter. So when COVID hit, I mean, we stopped in our tracks, right? And moved immediately to a remote situation. Keith, Mike, and I sat down and figured out how we could serve our advisors more thoroughly and comprehensively. We actually carved out the country. So, and we took on about a dozen advisors each, and we would be the main principal person that they would come to with any questions, because people do matter. So we would be that conduit where we could address any questions relating to Berkadia or the marketplace. So they knew that they had a go-to person, and we were accountable. And I think the transparency that we provided in terms of what we knew and how we were going to adjust and measure, just the productivity of what we were seeing in the market, and bring that knowledge to them as advisors to help them get their deals done was critically important, and I think really well appreciated. And so we did that up until I would think the end of the summer, where then we saw some signs that the market was coming back, and we saw, there were more congruent patterns where we didn't have to do that any longer. I mean, we still have our monthly calls with the advisors in a regional setting, but we had that one-on-one where we could be that person that they could go to, like I said, more regularly for questions and stuff like that.
I love everything you guys are talking about. People matter, having a go-to person, follow up. These, I mean, all such fundamental things, and they're so simple, they're complicated for most companies. So when I talk to companies and people like you who have such synergy together as a leadership team, I love it. And I think I'm so grateful that there are companies of your size who think like this, because it's inspiring to so many other people. Dori, I want to talk about the market coming back, because it's such a crazy thing that we're going through COVID. We can point to the unemployment numbers, the pandemic, the numbers rising, yet the Dow is hitting 31,000, an all-time high. Interest rates are incredibly low right now, not only for commercial, but for residential. And before we jump into a little bit about the market, I want to talk about some of the fundamentals, because these last 9 months, business people, salespeople, leaders have had to really zoom in on fundamental things as it pertains to building relationships, building relationship capital, and doing things. And I am hoping that those fundamentals don't go away as the market starts to come back, as we feel the momentum, as all of the things start to kind of pan out where it's business getting back to usual. So Dori, I want to start with you on this one, but what's like one fundamental that you hope people keep intact as the market begins to pick up?
I think just communicating at a high level and being responsive. I think that would be appreciative, because I think in a time, during COVID, people were readily available to have discussions, right? Like you pick up the phone, you'd call somebody, they would call you back, or they would answer the phone right then and there. So I think that just the connectivity, I think that would be something that I would hope that would continue on as we get more busy, and people appreciate just the actionable insights that we've been able to provide them to help them make better real estate decisions.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, one of the things that I hold very close to my value proposition is my accessibility, returning every call, text, email, same day. And so I no matter, for anybody. And so I always want people feeling like my only client. And so I think that is so critical. And if we can kind of build that into our muscle, that's great. Mike, how about you? What's the one thing fundamental you hope people kind of stick with?
So communication would be one thing. And then I'll piggyback off my last answer, but I think we developed an ability to really connect with people as people coming out of this. And so I think not losing that, I think we're going to get back into the quote unquote rat race. And so if you lose that connectivity, if you lose that personal level, I think it's a missed opportunity. I hope that just changes the working dynamic moving forward. I think we've made a lot of progress on that front. Yeah,
I love it. Keith, how about you?
I'd break it down to connectivity, honesty, and sincerity. I mean, really, when we got in the early start of COVID, it was scary. So how did you kind of get through it? I think everyone just broke down to what they really needed to get done and how to get done. And my default on that is just driving sincerity. I think we're all honest, but I just really just ride that.
Yeah.
Really kind of, we're in it together. Let's be sincere about it and let's understand it. And we're all human.
Yeah.
Can I add one more?
Yeah, of course.
This when we were talking to people at first of just being able to say, share what you knew. But I think we also developed a comfort with sharing what we didn't know. And we felt comfortable being vulnerable as leaders, saying, hey, I don't know the answer, and I'm looking to you to help me figure that answer out. We're going to co-create the answer, or we're going to go find somebody that can help us find that answer. But I think that was something that on a personal level, I got a lot more comfortable with saying, hey, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Let's figure this out. Because I think there's just so much unknown. Everybody, developed that to a certain extent.
Yeah, I was actually going to say after Keith talked, so I love that you talked about it, is what you're all talking about is also is vulnerability. And a year ago, if I were on a live call, and my dog was barking, I didn't realize my dog was on my chair, was barking during, it would have been kind of embarrassing. It was kind of like every day. You guys weren't even like, whatever, the dog, but it's, I agree, if anybody has it, I talk about this a lot, but Brene Brown is absolutely brilliant. Her books, Daring Greatly, her TED Talks have gone viral. There's I want to say 30, 40 plus million views. And she talks about being vulnerable, and she talks about being in the arena, and that, it's, if you haven't watched it, it's worth watching. I'll put the links to her TED Talks and her Netflix show in the notes on my website for this. But that just drives home the power of vulnerability.
That's my favorite quote, by the way.
It's the best. Yeah, it's the best. So let's talk about the market, right? The market coming back, and what to expect. And a lot of times when I'm interviewing business people, I'm not from a compliance standpoint looking for any predictions or any type of forecasts or things of that nature, because somebody may listen to this in 3 years and say, "Hey, you told me X." So generically, in a way, about the market, what should we expect as we sit here? January 11th, 2021. I'll share my perspective real quick. I think this year is going to be like a 12-month year, and it's going to be 12 different years. Every month is going to be like a different year, because the many of the things that we're talking about, many of the things that are happening in the world are going to slowly be rolling out through the course of the year. And none of us have a crystal ball of exactly the ripple effect, the vaccines and how they're distributed, COVID and how long it will last, businesses, how long some will be shut down, who's opening, travel, and when that opens up, which will change the landscape. So many different things. And so I'm not going to ask you a broad question, but I'm going to ask you, what are we going to see these next 30, 60, 90 days-ish when it comes to the market or the mindset of the clients? Dori, let's start with you.
Okay. This is an hour discussion right here with this one particular question.
Dori, I can cancel my next meeting. We can.
Okay. No, I think multifamily has proven to be resilient, and recession proof. So I think, we've proven out with collections and operations that, there's a lot of strength, and the underlying fundamentals are really strong. And when you look at and add on the demographics and just some household formation stats and low interest rates, I'm bullish on the multifamily sector. And I think we're going to see an insatiable appetite and demand for properties. And I think that's going to bode well for investors. A lot of investors are under allocated to real estate, and the reason why they select real estate as part of their portfolio is the fact that it provides a hedge and it provides portfolio diversification. So I'm bullish on the sector. I think we're, as long as we can prove out values and get sellers to agree to sell, I think the demand for assets will be there, and there'll be a lot of transaction activity, more than we witnessed last year. I think we proved that out in some of the volumes that we saw in December. So yeah. I'll stop there because I don't want to take everyone's answers.
Oh, it was great. I love it.
That was like, I'm going to go next. Sorry.
That was like a mini masters. I love that, Dori. That was great. Mike or Keith?
Yeah, something was in my mind. Let me just send it. Mike, I'll leave some stuff for you to talk about. But when the pandemic hit, I kept thinking to myself, and I said it internally and probably with clients, I said, well, risk has labels now. You can actually see risk, right? You feel it. For the 10 years after the great financial crisis, we, in the apartment space, we had continually better interest rates, cap rates, this kind of long run of year over year. And we all knew there was risk, but you couldn't label it. Now you can label it, and it's the form of collections. Okay, it's the form of move outs. It's the form of lack of job growth. It's the form of going to suburbs when it was all going to urban before. And there's now, risk is movement, transitions. So people that are, kind of analytical about investing, which a lot of our clients are very analytical, they get something to actually work on and calculate and adjust and measure. And then you can assess risk. And people are doing that more and more now. And I like your analogy. I'm not sure it's going to be 12 mini years. I'd give you 6 mini years.
All
but
right.
in each of those 2 month periods, risk will have a label that will be a flag that will be waving around, and people will focus on that. And then it could be a flag that stays, but sometimes a flag will go down and a new one comes up. So it keeps us busy. I'll tell you that, kind of analyzing this stuff with our clients.
Yeah.
They said it both wonderfully. The only thing I would add, we saw pent-up demand last year play out in a great fashion, from the market freezing, but the capital being on the sideline, trying to figure out when to get back in, because it's such an attractive market, as Dori said. And at Berkadia, we actually had pent-up all the way to closings in December. We had a record year by a record month by 33% in December. So all that pent-up demand kind of came out to fruition in December. What does that mean going forward? I think there's still that capital on the sidelines, always ready to be deployed. But to your point, John, to Keith's point, is it 12 mini years or 6 mini years? They're going to keep trying to figure out what do the fundamentals look like, what's the government going to do, what is the new presidency going to do. But there's still that pent-up demand ready to be deployed at any time.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm an owner listening to this, I'm thinking to myself, based on the market dynamics, I have to get a BOV of my property today, regardless what I'm doing, selling, buying, refi, holding. I must know the value of my property today, right? Maybe you guys can't say that, but I'm going to say it because it is crazy. I was in the commercial real estate for 13 years, and to me, it is critical in today's world that everyone have a snapshot of today's market of everything that they own. So, and you guys do an amazing job of doing that. So that's my promo for Berkadia for you guys. But I believe it. I believe it in my heart of hearts. All right, you guys ready for a quick speed round?
Sure.
All right. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received. Mike, we'll start with you.
Wow. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received. Gosh, on the fly. You know what? I'll go back to that quote. It wasn't somebody that was given to me, but the Teddy Roosevelt quote of being in the arena.
Yeah.
I have it printed out. I have it framed. I love that of just being willing to go and fail.
Yeah.
Like a willingness to fail because you come out stronger on the other end. And other people might sit there and point at you and kind of ridicule your failure, but you're actually in the arena.
Yeah.
Your face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. And I think the quote. So I love that quote. So I'll use that.
Amen. Amen to that. I love it. Dori, how about you?
I would go back to the question about vulnerability. Just put yourself out there and be vulnerable, because that's how you're going to grow, and you're not going to grow without failure and, learning from those failures. I would say vulnerability. All
right. Keith?
Shout out to my parents who are no longer with us, but be true to yourself first.
Yeah.
And then it'll all happen.
I'll give a shout out to my parents too, since you did, your parents, because my parents are no longer here as well. My parents always used to drive home. You can always learn something from somebody older or younger. Always be open to learn and be open for feedback. Yeah. And all right, next question. One piece of wisdom, one piece of advice that you would give somebody graduating college right now. Keith, we'll start with you.
Okay, I have that situation happening. So I think it's, you got to be true to yourself, follow your heart, because actually there's so many new opportunities.
Yeah.
A little bit what you just said, John. The old guy like me now all of a sudden you're not going to do it the way I did it.
Yeah.
It's going to be different. And then in COVID and everything, it kind of compressed and expanded a lot of things that were going to happen over time.
Yeah.
So be entrepreneurial. I think that's a key.
All right. Dori?
Be open-minded and entrepreneurial.
Yeah. Amen. Mike?
I mean, find a job where you can develop not only your IQ, your EQ, but those critical thinking skills. I think being able to be thrown into a lot of different situations is commonplace, and so you have to do strong critical thinking skills and analytical skills to adapt to whatever the market looks like in 2030, as you said. Jobs in 2030 don't exist today, and vice versa. So
I love it. All right, my last question. And you can choose favorite book, TED Talk, or article. Dori, we'll start with you.
Oh my goodness. Let me see what's here. Let's go with Machiavelli. This is what's on my desk right now.
Oh, that tells me a lot about you, Dori. All right. That's a good book. I had to read that in college. Yeah. I had to read that in college. Mike, how about you or Keith?
I'll go with Leadership and Self-Deception, which is very powerful for the way we operate and run our company. I'd highly recommend it for anybody.
All right.
Great story.
Mike, how about you?
I'll go less traditional on the business side. It's more of just pleasure reading, but Unbroken. I really enjoy that one.
All right. Good. I'll mention one of my favorite books. I don't know. You guys have inspired me. I don't usually jump in, but The Alchemist, which I think is just one of my, it just kind of fits, I think, with the theme of some of the stuff we're talking about. It's one of my favorite books. All right. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, any contact information, if they're interested in working with Berkadia, working with Berkadia as a client, working with Berkadia as a team member. How can everybody get a hold of you?
I'll go first, Berkadia.com, got our contact information. Also, LinkedIn is always seems to be the place everybody goes.
All right, good.
On LinkedIn, mike.miner@berkadia.com.
All right. Guys, this has been great. I've loved our time together. I appreciate everything that you all talked about, being vulnerable, putting yourself out there, follow up, connecting with clients, being creative, clients first, all of the things that you talked about as far as resetting on January 1st. What are you doing to be adaptable, communicating at a high level? And most importantly, every organization that separates the great from the exceptional, it all focuses on the people. And so I appreciate at your core, all of you individually and as a company, how you put people first, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. All of you have shared talking about how everyone is human. I'm in a lot of organizations around the country where some of them, I work with them to treat their people like human beings and not like numbers. And so you guys do that. You guys have huge hearts, as does your company. I appreciate you taking time to share your thoughts, your wisdom, your stories, and everything about Berkadia. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. And thanks, guys. Have a great day. Here's to a great year.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
That was fun. Take care.
Stay
Bye-bye.
on for just a second. Thanks, everybody.